Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be building this double vanity right here for our new master bathroom. So stick around and I'll show you guys what I've got planned. Now before I get started, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video and I'll get started. Now first I'm going to be cutting out the dividers for this vanity. There's going to be two sections on either side for a cabinet under each sink and then one section in the middle. So I'm going to need 4 dividers, one for each end, and then 2 in the middle to section it off into 3 sections. For these dividers, I'm going to be using 3/4 inch plywood. It gives a lot more rigidness to this cabinet than just 1/2 inch. So in order to cut this, it's larger than my table saw can actually cut. So I'm going to use my level, clamp that down onto the sheet of plywood and use a square. Make sure that's perfectly square, and then I can run my saw down that and cut a perfectly straight line. Now I'm going to cut, like I mentioned, 4 of these out, and then I can proceed to the next step. Now I've got to cut the notch in the bottom for your feet. Now if you notice, underneath cabinets, kitchen cabinets, bathroom cabinets, there's normally a ledge that goes in down at the bottom. This is so that if you walk up towards the cabinet, you don't stub your toes. You can easily walk up and not worry about it, and you probably don't even think about it because you don't ever stub your toes on that. So I'm going to be cutting that notch out, and then I also need to cut on the 2 inside panels. I'm going to be cutting a notch for the boards on the back to be screwed right to the back, and that will hold the cabinet all together. Now that the dividers are all cut out, I need to start cutting some of the runners that are going to go down the cabinet lengthwise, holding those 4 dividers together. Now all the runners are cut for the cabinet. Basically the frame of the cabinet is done. Now I need to start cutting out some of the boxing around the front of the cabinet where the doors will go, as well as the drawers in the middle. Now before I start assembling the cabinet, I want to pick which side of these boards I want to keep. There is a side that's sanded and a side that's not, so I want to make sure I get the right one. I'm going to use a marker and write top on each of these and even label the pieces so I don't get it mixed up when I start assembling. So now that I have everything marked, I know which side I need to use as the outside face of these boards. I'm going to use a Craig jig to cut a few pocket hole screws for these, and this is what I'm going to be mounting the frame of the cabinet together with. So this works perfect for applications where you need to hide the screws. You don't want the screws on the outside and messing up the look of your finished product, and this will be easy to have these right in the back and be hidden. Now these pocket hole screws work great for just about any cabinet use. So I'm going to actually be using these pocket hole screws for the dividers to mount to the face frame of the cabinet, as well as all the runners inside, and make sure everything's hidden. Now I've got all the pieces ready to go. All I need to do is assemble it. So as I'm putting these together, I'm going to glue each joint of the frame, and this really isn't ever going to come apart, so I'm not worried about that at all. So this glue really just gives it a little extra strength and durability. Now as I'm assembling this, you'll notice I'm running 2 runners across the top of the cabinet, one in the back, one in the front, and then on the back of the cabinet I'm running 2 more runners, one at the bottom where the floor is, and then one at the top where the countertop's going. So this really just boxes in the cabinet, it adds a ton of strength. You can run a full sheet of plywood on the back of the cabinet, and it adds a little bit more strength, but it's really not necessary. It's just going to make the cabinet a lot heavier. So most cabinets you see will have these two boards running across the length of the cabinet, tying everything together, and this really strengthens it up and gives you a place where you can mount this to the wall and have a place to screw everything down. Another thing to notice, I notched the two middle pieces so that the boards can be set right down inside of this, but the end pieces I did not notch those, and there are no exposed screws. So this is the back that you're seeing right now. It's okay if you see screws, that's going to be up against the wall, and everything on the ends as well as this other side I just turned up will be showing. So all of those screws I just showed you are all going to be hidden. Now I'm going to start working on the face of the cabinet, and this I don't want any exposed screws. I'm going to use a nail gun to tack it in place, and then in the back on those divider pieces I have already pre-drilled pocket hole screws that I can mount the face of the cabinet to. Now the face of the cabinet's finished. I'm gonna now install the floor on either side where the cabinets are going. I don't need a floor in the middle where the drawers are. I'll just have a partial floor to cover up where that ledge is, but everything else will be open for the drawers. So I'm gonna tack the floor on either side in place with a nail gun, and then I'll come back with the pocket hole screws and tighten this down with some screws as well. Now I need to lay out the drawers. I want a shallow drawer up at the top and then two deeper drawers down below that. So I'll measure it out and install these dividers, and this will really give me a guide for building the drawers once I'm done. Next step will be the drawer slides. I need to add a spacer in underneath these drawer slides so that they line up perfectly with the framing I installed for around the drawers. Once that's installed, I can now move to building the drawers and installing them. Now the drawers that I'm building are just about the simplest drawers you can make. I'm just going to use straight flat joints on the corners. I'll glue each joint as well as nailing them so that it holds tight while the glue dries. Once the glue is dried, that will do the majority of the holding. The nails won't really need to do anything at that point. Now for the bottom, I've notched all the boards around the outside, and the bottom can actually set right down inside of that and glue it in place and nail it. Now I'm going to make the two deeper drawers, and I made these both the same size so I can just copy the same measurements twice and cut all those side pieces all at the same time. Now, in order to add even more storage space on each side where the cabinet doors are going, I'm going to add a shelf to divide the space up a little bit. Now, if you leave the shelf like this, it makes it look a little cheap, and there's a really easy way to dress this up and make it look a ton better and even make the shelf stronger too. So I'm going to cut a thin strip of plywood, add some glue on that, and nail it in place on the face of the shelf. And this adds a lot nicer look to it. It makes it seem a little bit of thicker, rugged shelf. It's already strong, but this strengthens it up even more and gives a nice touch. Now I'm going to start on the cabinet doors. We're going to have two doors on either side, and I'm going to be making these out of plywood with strips of plywood to frame each of those in. So these are going to be fairly narrow doors. We're going to have a strip of plywood around the whole perimeter of each of these. I'll be gluing each of these strips of wood and then putting 2 staples in the front to hold it, and then several staples in the back. And that will add a lot of strength until the glue has fully dried. So there's the final door. We have that all assembled. Now we can start mounting them on the cabinet and see what this is going to look like. Now I'm going to be using these hinges that are hidden. Most of the hinge is on the back side of the door, so you won't even see them. And then when you open these, they are actually self-closing, so that's really nice. It'll keep the doors from opening up or staying open. They'll close on their own. So I'm going to be mounting these to the back of the doors. A really easy way to make sure they're all the same distance apart is cut a board the right size that you want and use that as a guide to line up each of these hinges as you're screwing them down. Now the last step of constructing this cabinet is adding on the drawer faces. So this is a pretty easy step. Once you have the drawers mounted, then you just want to make sure all the measurements line up. You line up that face directly in between those two doors and it's perfectly level across, or else you're going to see it. This is the finished product. This is what you see at the end, so you want to make that look nice. So I'm going to add glue on the back of that face. I'll put it up against the drawer, make sure everything looks good. I'll add in a few tacks from my finish nailer, and then I can then take the drawer out and put in a few screws to hold it securely in place. Now I need to prep the vanity for paint, and to do this I'm going to be using my electric orbital sander, and I'll just sand down every surface, make sure there are no splinters or rough spots on the wood, and can just smooth it out pretty good. So I'm going to sand this down. I need to take everything apart, take the drawers back out, and then I can start priming this. I'll add a couple coats of paint and then this should be all finished up. So I'll sand this down real quick and then I'll get started on painting. Now once you're done sanding, everything will be covered in dust. So I'm going to take my air compressor and blow all the surfaces down, make sure there's no dust on it. Now all the dust is in the air again, so I'm going to let that settle down, come back and clean it off one more time, and then I'm ready to get started on painting. Now before I paint, I'm going to quickly take off those doors and the hinges. I don't want to have to worry about cutting in on those. It'll be much faster if I take everything apart, paint it individually, and then reassemble it up in the bathroom. Now to paint this, I have all just straight edges. It will work perfectly for a roller, so I'm going to use a roller on this. First spread white primer over everything, and then I'll come back, add another coat of paint over every surface, and then only on the high traffic areas like the drawers, the doors, the base of the floor inside the cabinet, I'll add a second coat of paint on that as well. All the painting's done. Now I can start assembling it again and move it up into our bathroom and see what this looks like. All finished off and ready to go. Now one last finishing touch, I need to add in drawer pulls for these drawers. So I'm gonna measure out the center of each of these drawers. I'll pre-drill where those screws need to go, and that will make my life a lot easier when I try to screw these into place. Now that just finishes up the video for today. Thanks guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you're interested in seeing how we built the butcher block countertop on top of this vanity, you can check out the video after this one and you can see how we did that. Now this is part of a series that we're doing on renovating our master bathroom. If you're interested in seeing other projects we've done like the flooring, plumbing, installation, sheetrock, you can check out those videos by going to the playlist on my channel and seeing the whole project. So thanks guys for watching. Hope you enjoy this one, and I'll see you in the next one.